Hello and welcome to Around the Lens, episode 105. I'm your host, David J. Murphy. With me, as always, is my co-host, Zach Roberts. Zach, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good. So should we continue the discussion about kosher salt, or should we stick with...
Oh, my gosh. I tell you, we could do a whole show on kosher salt. Let me tell you. Ladies and gentlemen, you should have been on the pre-show chat. Oh, it was classic. I mean,
That's for Patreon subscribers. We can start having over a $10 donation. You can be included
Pre
in
and post.
the uncensored Around the Lens.
No, it'll just be weekly salt chats. We're going to talk about salt.
Well, I've got a great
spices.
Himalayan that I want to discuss this episode.
Right.
Well, Zach, happy to have you back. How was your holiday?
It was good. It was good. Got some nice photo books, which is cool. So that's always nice.
I also got a photo book, one by our last week or two guest, Scott Strazant. I got his Bosch Shooting from the Hip book, my little Christmas present to myself. So maybe it'll be the first of many books in my book collection. I don't know. I went down to Florida, saw the family down there, and I'm now back in the studio. So worked out pretty well. Did you go anywhere or just kind of stick around upstate New York?
Just we've had I don't know if you've noticed, but we on the national weather, but we've had some snow. We're literally in the last 2 hours, I think we've gotten 5 inches of snow. So literally it's just coming down. I mean, luckily this set is really light and fluffy and everything like that. But so basically I have not been able to leave the house for half of the last 2 weeks.
Yeah. I heard you guys could really use some global warming up there. Am I right?
Yeah, we
No
could.
such thing. No such thing. It's
a
myth.
That damn Chinese conspiracy is really screwing with my ability to go and do any sort of coverage. So,
indeed. Well, I'd love to talk about global warming and salt for the rest of the hour with you, Zach. But we do have guests we have to introduce. So let's introduce our guests. Let's start with our newcomer this week, Noah Berger. Noah, please tell us about yourself.
Howdy. I'm a freelance photographer in San Francisco. Long time doing it for the wires and the major papers. I'm the mainstream equivalent of Zach. About 23 years doing that, and actually managed to make a pretty good living at freelance news. And that was the lie detector there.
There goes that
lens. With corporate. I cover a lot of fires, a lot of protests, a lot of kind of the fires and violence person out here for the wires. So a lot of Occupy and stuff where stuff burns.
Nice.
And that's what I got.
Awesome, man. Well, happy to have you on. Can't wait to talk to you about all the great topics, non-salt related topics we have on tonight's show. Our other guests this week are returning panelist Julie Dermansky. Hey, Julie, how you doing?
Good. I spent the holidays catching up from the rest of the year, so that was good. So I can start with a clean slate, everything filed away with copyrights and all that kind of thing. And
yeah, you have to do that in case somebody infringes on your copyright.
Works out good.
Which we'll talk a little bit about during the show, but remind our listening audience who may not know who you are, just if they didn't catch you on the last episode a few weeks ago.
I'm a freelancer, a mixture between Noah and Zach. Except I don't do the AP, but some mainstream. I guess different because it's more not for the wires, like BuzzFeed, Reveal, the clients that have their own media sources, and I do a lot of my own reporting for a Desmog blog, which goes on to Truth Out, so some fake news for sure.
No such thing.
And finally joining us tonight is a returning panelist, and you can't say we're not a diverse show because we have our token Australian,
Stampfli. From Venezuela originally, by the way. The freelance based
so much diversity.
Freelancer based in Brisbane. More so the friendly side of things, the weddings, parties, anything for me, rather than the getting beaten by a stick type of photography you guys tend to do.
I mean, I'm sure you could get beaten up by a stick at a wedding if you're not careful.
Well, actually, I'm chasing one client at the moment who I don't want to suggest he'll get beaten by a stick, but I'd like to. At the moment, it's very much freelancer rather than paid lancer.
Yeah.
And yeah, more so. What else have I done? Just recently started another business with another photographer, doing all-day experiences and workshops and things like that. So, trying to get people out into Brisbane and the surrounding suburbs and areas just to photograph what beautiful parts we have.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'd love to come out there and visit sometime. So,
yeah.
You know, if you want me to do the show out there, just let me know.
Absolutely. Well, it's back to global warming. It's going to be rather warm today. So as soon as this show finishes, I'll be grabbing a beer and jumping in my pool. So
nice.
Yeah. So get your jackets on, Zach.
Yeah.
Or your plane ticket down to Brisbane.
That would be nice. I could use a little bit of a break from I think it's 4 right now, 4 degrees. Fahrenheit, of course.
Yeah. We are 27 degrees Celsius.
No idea what that even means. I mean, that's you're talking a foreign language to me.
Warmer than Zach.
Yes.
Yeah, a little bit. All right. Well, hey, we got a lot to talk about tonight. Of course, our Australian commentator is in the future. He's actually January 2nd right now.
That's right.
He was actually in 2018 before we all were. So experiencing the future.
Well, we're very advanced down here.
Indeed. You got dingoes and all that stuff and Barbies. But we're talking about the new year. It's obviously, this is January 1st. It's the new year. It just so happened that our show fell on this day. So kind of a happy, lucky accident, I would think. And we're talking about a bunch of different topics related to the new year.
Yeah.
But I want to start, of course, with the most, obvious thing that you can think about with regard to a New Year's resolutions. So I'm not just talking about, hey, I'm going to go to the gym and cut down on X, Y, or Z food. And that's obvious. But I'm talking more about like photo or video or story or how we shoot or how we do our job type resolutions.
So 4K 300 DPI?
What's that?
4K 300 DPI?
Yeah, I think I'm finally going to upgrade to 5 megapixel photos, this year. I'm going to try and cut down on the alcohol and caffeine and all the other stimulants. Personal resolution. Work-wise, I tried to do the photo a day challenge for myself last year. I did pretty good. I think I only missed a couple days. So I'm going to try and do it again this year. And what sucks is a friend of mine who is not a photographer, not a photojournalist, he's just a guy who got a camera. He was able to complete the the photo a day challenge the first time he did it in 2017. Wow. And, took some beautiful shots. So, good job to him. I'm jealous, but I'll hopefully get it done this year. But what are your guys' resolutions? Like, what do you plan to do differently this year, or maybe improve upon, or say like I'm going to get around to doing that thing I said I would do, visual journalism related wise? What do you got? Noah, you got anything for us?
I'm the wrong one for this question. I'm very ungoal oriented. I don't like holidays or marking the passage of time with things in any sense.
Right.
So it's all one continuum with no difference. Tomorrow's my big holiday when it's done, and there are months and months with no festivities or things that you have to do. So I do not do resolutions, just like I don't do work goals. But I'll come in on the next question, or I'll just criticize your guys' resolutions.
Yeah, feel free to criticize. Did you say work hole?
What's that?
Did you say work hole?
No. That's a good word, though. I like that. But no.
I heard that.
No, basically, I just don't change anything ever. Like that.
I'm with him on that. Exactly the same. Cool. I like that.
Perfect the way you are.
I find it just really annoying, all of that stuff.
So there's nothing either of you plan on doing any differently in 2018 that you haven't done your entire careers?
Exactly.
You're not going to get a new camera or a new lens or archive your stuff better?
I need to buy some fire clothes that Noah gave me a recommendation, but I still have not pulled it. I'm a terrible shopper, but it has nothing to do with the change of the year. It's just getting what I need for the next thing that I want to do.
And I got my gear shopping in last night, like 3 hours before before midnight, to take advantage of the tax here. I did a little B&H in homage to Zach there.
Yeah,
got a couple non-sexy things, but that's the average of time is what saves on taxes.
Okay, great. Well, I mean, that's pretty awesome that you both are perfect in every way. So
I don't know if that's perfect.
No need for change.
It's kind of what you still say. Like I saw what the topics were going to be tonight, and I'm like, oh, do they really want me on the show? I have nothing except for personal projects. But
we always want you on the show, Julie. How about throw it to Zach or Craig? You other guys have any visual journalism resolutions this year?
Come on, man! It's only the second day of the year. Give me a break.
I mean, personally, there's just certain maintenance thing. I mean, it has nothing necessarily to do with the new year, other than it's the new taxes, there's like legal and financial reasons why this year, why January 1st is different. In my view, it's like I'm going to try to shoot more for the wire that I work for, just kind of doing more general stuff. Like I should actually be getting out and tomorrow and try to photograph some of the winter weather, things like that I never do. But if you build a catalog of it with your wire, it eventually kind of builds up. And because I mean, getting those quarterly statements that I'm looking forward to now from my wire, I'm kind of terrified because it could go one way or the other of how much I made in the last quarter. Because I didn't shoot a lot in the last quarter, but I'm still waiting for a lot of payments from the previous quarter to come through. And so, but since I didn't shoot that much, it means that potentially just those random build-up photos that normally are like a couple bucks a shot that some random website uses. Yahoo News does a gallery of photo news, and you make $5, $6, $10 maybe if you're lucky from it. Because that's so sad.
I'm looking for my wallet here so I can
see my wire statements, which we should actually all do a show on this. And when I get my wire statements, I literally will scan it in and put it in, and we can all cry about not just my own personal financial system setup, but like the state of the industry, where literally like the Guardian buys a photo for $3.50, and I get $1.75 of it.
But that's why you need to stop putting it on the wire. And
it's
a website where people can find your stuff and shoot special things, and then they can.
I mean, I will say that I think that a large number of the hits that I got last year, like with the Charlottesville work that I did, a large amount of that either was the photos that I sold to AP, which I sold that to them too cheaply, but that's learning process or whatever. But I would say for the most part that the really big hits that I got for those were personal sales from me. So, I mean, it's just I think that going forward, I won't upload those really, really important photos, like the photo that's been everywhere for my Charlottesville work, and maybe just upload the general photos and keep the more important ones for my own personal sales directly. But just in the general, just trying to do more daily photography, which I think it's just a good thing to do anyway, is just get out and shoot at least once or twice a week, because the way that mostly I work, since I also write and I research and do these podcasts and so many other things, I don't get out and shoot as much as I like to. Like, I haven't really done a real photo assignment, I would say in like 6 weeks. And that I've done other work related, but there was really no reason. We've had a couple big stories around here that there's no reason. I should have gone out to Troy. There was a quadruple homicide out there, and like there's no reason why I shouldn't do that. And this year, like I said, just not only for financial reasons but also for photographic, keeping my skills up, because every single time like in 2 weeks we're going to have like 17 events happening in DC and in New York and all the anniversaries of the inaugural, and now I'm going to have to jump back in and try to remember how to do this whole thing, photojournalism again. Which hopefully it's like riding a bike, right?
Yeah, right. You bring up an interesting point, Julie, and I'd like to kind of explore that, because this whole resolution discussion isn't going anywhere. But I'm okay with admitting that. One before we do, though, I just want to say last year I made some claims and some promises with regard to the amount of post I would put on the website and the amount of things and new shows and stuff. And a lot of that didn't come to fruition. So I'm not making any promises this year with regard to the show or with regard to the website. You will get an episode every Monday for the foreseeable future. And that's about the most I will promise with regard to Around the Lens. So, but I did want to explore this topic you brought up there for a second, Julie, and maybe you can kind of elaborate on it. You told Zach not to go with wires, and you said to host the pictures on his own website.
If you're not on an assignment basis like Noah, you do better off as working at McDonald's. I mean, and you're also devaluing your own work, because even if you're saying, okay, I'm going to keep the best ones for myself, but I'm going to put out mediocre ones, then they're going to choose the mediocre ones because they pay a monthly rate to use X amount of pictures. That's how it works.
Yeah.
And so basically, the more you feed the wire what you've got, the more you're killing it for yourself to get a good sale. I sell some stuff to like Bloomberg, stuff they call me because they know that they'll find climate related stuff and industry related stuff that other people don't have. Granted, you know, if you go to the Women's March or whatever, I mean, I'm not going to sell a picture per se or whatever, but you should always just shoot the best you can. And if you don't think you're going to sell, I mean, I don't know. The syndicating without a day rate, it's you're just destroying the market for yourself. So
I mean, so most of my work, I mean, this is do not consult your doctor. Do not go on my personal opinion of how to do things. I almost never go anywhere without a day rate already from a website or from publication, whether that be DSmog Blog or whether it be Nation of Change or whether it be any other publication I might work for. So I'm certainly not leaving the house with the idea that I'm hoping that I'm going to get those $1.50 sales. I've done that. I did that for like 2 years, and it's a reason why I have a massive amount of debt. And I kept hoping that, you know, I'd go to an event and try to pick up a story from there, and it never really happened. But I'm hoping that after this past year that I will be able to do a lot more of what you do as people begin to know my name. And in general, that's a really, really terrible way of breaking into photography or breaking into, I'd say, more mainstream photography. Like the fact that I'm actually getting hits and direct sales at places like Time Magazine and, you know, and the LA Times and, you know, and places like that, which is something that I would never, as far as I know, at least never really been able to do before. So now at least I have those contacts that I built up over the last year, so I can do that a lot less. And I would hope to do that a lot less. I mean, my God, I would love to work for, you know, I would love to work for the LA Times and you know, in Time Magazine and not sell. I mean, I probably have 30 photos in Time Magazine this year, or Time, you know, time.com this year. And probably, I think 2 of them they directly paid for, and every other one they probably paid $5 or whatever for, maybe tops or whatever. But so yeah, no, I'm hoping this year to do that a lot less. When I said what I just meant is when feeding stuff to the wire, like the general shots, not like the photo, which I agree with you, it's probably a bad idea. But I'm trying to figure all that out.
Well, it's just all those sales that you made that weren't directly from you, that came through your wire. Those were all sales. They didn't have to hire a photographer or pay someone direct. So it's just, you know, and again, it is what it is. But I say hold out.
On the other hand, Julie, like, I mean, they could also just pick it up from AP or
exactly.
So I mean, it's not like like.
No, exactly. But I agree. But that's what I'm saying. Like, so there's no reason to syndicate your work if you haven't gotten a day rate for it. You know, because you're just going to get $5, $10 over the course of a year now. Because, and I can say that because some of my stuff is on Getty from the old days via Corbis, and I'm looking at sales that my cut is under $1 for some fish kill that they'll use for a new fish kill that happened 10 years ago. So I'm just not feeding the beast anymore. And I know you're right. If there was a new one from the AP, they'd go with that. I'm just saying, well, why should I feed the beast? It doesn't help me. And I'm not against anyone shooting for AP or Reuters and all that. You know, I mean, that's great. That's a good way to get out and do the stuff, you know.
I gotcha. Yeah.
And for me, I mean, a lot of it just has to do with that. I mean, hopefully, as I get a little bit more financially stable, that $1,500 or $2,000 check quarterly is a lot of times on how that's the kind of the base coverage. I mean, that's rent for a couple months or something like that, or not a couple months, but that's the sort of thing that either helps me buy that new lens, and that I think that the problem is that I know that I'm feeding the beast, and we're all, by doing things like what I'm saying, is it's kind of killing the industry as a whole. Is allowing our work to be sold for the $1.50 or the $3 or whatever.
If you're getting that much a quarter, that's not so bad. I thought you were just talking about those dollars.
Oh no, but that's the thing, is that like on my last statement, like I wish I had it somewhere I could put it up. But my last statement from last quarter, I had 300 hits, and I would say probably 150 of them were for $3 or $4 tops. And so it all built up, and then I had maybe another 50 hits that were above, TV News bought it. So it's like, $50 or whatever terrible price the TV News pays for the photo. And so it builds up. I mean,
TV News should be higher.
Yeah, you'd think, like, wouldn't it?
150, 200.
Yeah, no, sadly, it's, I don't know. I don't know how, unfortunately, I mean, one of the problems with wire work in general, and this is something that I'm trying to get more information from my wire, which is Nerve Photo, and they what exactly is the discussion on having those photos? Because I mean, like, I know for a fact that, like, I had a photo on Bill Maher's show. I still have not seen that hit, and that was a year and a half ago. And they told me that they actually bought it and they went through it, and I still haven't seen that payment. And so I don't know what the discussion is there. And that's something I think that's a much broader conversation. I think as the people that feed into this machine, which is the wires, what's going on, what exactly is going on behind the scenes, because, there's a lot of work that, it's like, we can do that aren't necessarily, the direct sales on only kind of work if you have contacts and if people know you for that really well and know where to look. And which is something obviously I'd much rather do. I'd rather just go out and shoot, for on day rates, and then, maybe do resales later on. The problem is most of my publications don't pay me well enough to just rely on that, and the work's not consistent enough. But I think that's something that, I mean, I know photographers, photojournalists will never have a union, but that'd be something that I wish that, whether it be NPPA or any of the other kind of associations, we'd really be able to start having that conversation as a whole, because, we are fighting. We're not just fighting against that wire. We're also fighting against the random people who post on social media and then say, yeah, go ahead, take that photo. That's fine. No problem. Because I feel like that's even the next step, is that a lot of publications who have no photo editor, no art director, they're just taking it in they'll just take the photos from whatever, or even worse, they'll do what Getty allows now, which is embed the photo, which is the most terrifying thing, I think, for photojournalism to possibly ever happen beyond the advent of the digital camera.
Well, I mean, they obviously saw that a lot of people were using their stuff and embedding it, and it's like, it's probably easier to do that and go that route than it is to chase down every single little blogger and person and stuff like that. That's probably why they tried to.
Well, they did that because they make money. They embed a advertising code within the embed. The photographer gets absolutely no money from those embeds, not a penny. But Getty gets a massive trove of data and advertising dollars from those embeds. So unfortunately, I kind of, anytime I see, like, the Village Voice started doing that for a little while, using embeds, and then I think almost all the Village Voice photographers kind of screamed at them, and at least I've seen them stop at the moment. I hope that they haven't picked it up again. But
is there a mainstream publication that uses embeds?
Yes, tons of them do. I've seen a lot more publication. I'm trying to blank on which one did it. I mean, in general, they don't do it as much because, you know, most mainstream publications they pay the monthly fee for the AP or whatever. So it's not, you know, putting up a gallery of 20 photos probably cost them, God only knows, if anything, you know, just a couple bucks. And so they can do that. And the embeds are probably more trouble than it is because it's an embedded image. It's not filed on their own server. So that causes problems, you know, a year from now when Getty decides they're done with this embed thing, and then now your entire image gallery has disappeared or something like that. But yeah,
I can see the embeds being used by like the bloggers and the folks who are just don't have the backing of a large major corporation. But I don't know,
I'm surprised though. I thought that was going to happen. I thought that the blogosphere was going to start doing that the moment Getty did that. Like, what was it, 3-4 years ago? I think they started doing that. But I haven't seen it at all. All that bloggers do is they just do what they always did and steal the photos from mainstream publications. And then just, what I'd like to see now is that they actually started adding captions. And so I can actually find out where people stole my photos and then have my lawyer call them, which is nice.
There you go. So. Nice. All right. Well, we're going to try and get back on some show topics here, even though this is probably a mistake. But I did want to try and talk about a few things. So, again, with 2018 coming around, does anyone have any like personal projects that they want to work on this year, or thinking about doing, or if all the money in the world they had, they would do?
No, it has an answer.
I'll field this also. It's the same answer as the other one. I'll be the contrarian here. I actually don't do any personal work.
No. Really? None?
No.
None at all? You don't even like your family or anybody?
I'm in a nice position that I shoot a lot for work, and I've never actually done any personal projects or anything that isn't commissioned.
Well, do you do any work projects? Like, has anybody commissioned you for a project, or are you planning on any projects in the upcoming year?
No, I'm pretty much a daily shooter. I mean, the closest it gets to a project is an ongoing story, like Occupy, that'll go for 3 months that I would stay on for that long, or Fire that goes for 2 weeks would stay on. But I don't do any investigative projects or anything like that.
So you don't do anything that's self-directed. Everything you do is directed by your employer.
See, and then I can answer that one, because I'm the opposite of you exactly.
I know, I'm the outlier here.
Maybe about 10% of my work is assignment, and most everything else is self-assigned. Like whatever I feel like shooting. So I shoot for myself first, and then I sell it. You could say I'm always working on a personal project. I just choose topics that interest me and go for it.
Julie, what's coming up this year? Like, I think last year we talked about this, and maybe it wasn't you or somebody else, but you turned me on to the Occupy, or not the Occupy, but the Women's March that was happening. I wasn't tracking that last year. What is going on? What are some big events and some things that you want to cover this year in 2018?
Well, I'm very much focused on everything related to climate change, from the storms and the fires to the industry that is contributing to messing up our climate. And I've gotten really involved with covering one specific area in Louisiana, which is called Cancer Alley, between Baton Rouge and New Orleans. And the more I get involved, the more I get involved. So, just now, maybe 40 minutes from where I live, one of the most beautiful lakes in Louisiana, they want to put a battery making place from Australia.
Geez.
Pollute the last of the fresh seafood in the area and all kinds of things. And, once you get inside that stuff, it'll keep you going. If I'm not at a community meeting, people are like, "Where's Julie?" So, right. I'm kind of just sticking with what I got onto. But, I've always got side interests, anything to do with like some of the stuff Zach covers, anything extreme. The more extreme I'll go. Like, I won't be going to the Women's March this year. It's the second one. It really does fascinate me. It has to be like something fresh and new and crazy. Like I went down to Alabama to cover Bannon coming to see. And now I'm blocking on that guy's name, the one that just won't concede. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Just stuff like that. Anything extreme. So I keep up on that. I wouldn't mind making it to Antarctica this year. I'm gonna try for that. So that's
extreme.
Yeah.
So speaking of extreme stuff and projects and whatnot, and talking about things that are coming up this year, one of the big things going on this year are the elections. We have the midterm primaries, elections, and whatnot. That's going to be the big story this year because, of course, obviously they're expecting a lot of people to come out and vote potentially that weren't voted, in 2016. Is this a topic that you think, any of you think that you'll be covering, whether it be assigned or, just because it's something that it's going to be obviously covered big time?
I'll probably bow out and stay away from it.
I'm sure you'll cover it, Noah. Something to do with your, whatever, the story. I'm sure you covered the election. I'm sure, right? You covered election-related stories. So, is there any election stuff going on in your district that that you'll be covering?
I'm not that up on it. I feel like there's one in Central California, but it's not on my radar enough. But I think we only have one that's really tight and important seat.
Okay.
But it probably will come up when it's closer. It's just not on my radar yet.
Okay. Anything, Julie, or?
No, I mean, again, if something extreme comes up, then I'll be drawn to that. But if it isn't an extreme kind of situation, not so much.
So unless some kid comes out on a skateboard while drinking a Surge and does a 720 on a half pipe, you're not covering it, right?
I need like a Sarah Palin type, something like that. It's just someone who's fascinating to me. Right now, no one stands out that I'm like, oh, I gotta, drive over there or get on a plane to cover that. But if someone inspires me or fascinates me, I'll be there for sure.
Or they beat the 14-year-old level that Ray Moore is at. If it's like 12, then it's new and exciting.
Yeah, he I don't know if there's one quite like him. I mean, he's a special guy.
And why does he get to refer to himself still as judge if he's no longer a judge? Is that just one of those self-appointed titles?
No, it's an elected position, but who knows? Yeah. I mean, the guy's Looney Tunes, but
for sure.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I'm sorry, Julie. I confused extreme with to the extreme, so my mistake. But okay. Zach, anything from you? Anything you got going on?
Basically, this year is going to be the year of projects. I'm going to be. My goal is to basically double the amount of time I spent on the road. I drove 30,000 miles last year. I live in the middle of nowhere where nothing happens here other than we get some snow. So basically every story I cover, I have to drive at least like 3 hours, 4 hours. I think New York City is kind of the closest place that I go to cover protests. I'm trying to move somewhere closer, but I'm working on a quickie kind of year in review book that I'm going to do that's going to expand on I wrote a lot last year and kind of expand on that, add a bunch of photos. But the big thing is I'm working on a film with a bunch of other photographers, a bunch of guys who have actually been on the show before, on Charlottesville, which is going to be not just about Charlottesville, but the lead up to what happened in Charlottesville. So it's literally called What Happened in Charlottesville. And the idea is to kind of cover how the white supremacist movement got to the point that they were literally marching in the streets of a major city in America. And the great thing is that we're working with 4 other photographers. Is that since we're all producers on the film, literally there's almost no need to buy B-roll. So, so that's gonna probably take up a lot of the year working, and also then eventually when I hopefully can have it out by the anniversary. But the other thing too is that I'm going to actually try to cover as many political races in the lead up of 28 as I can, just because it's I think that this year is going to be a very, very fascinating year. There's a bunch of very interesting politicians that some of which are literal white supremacists that are probably going to win the nomination, like guys that are actually like open white supremacists, not like a Roy Moore or something like that. That's like, oh no, it's kind of hindered in some, covered in some other idea, but like guys that even Bannon won't touch, like that extreme.
Wow.
So there's small races. I mean, the big story is probably also going to be the state houses, and I'd really like to try to figure out how to develop a kind of a long running story about how the state houses and the state assemblies in especially red states, but also blue states that have turned red over the last couple of years, and you have some completely insanely extreme people who are elected officials in those districts, thanks to redistricting, completely ignored because, you know, who cares about some state assemblyman from wherever? Even from upstate New York, there's some crazy people from upstate New York, you know, which is a pretend blue state, even though I'm in this area. Like, this is redder. My county is like redder than a lot of southern states. And so, like, I got Confederate flags down the street from me, like that sort of thing. So, yeah. Because, you know, remember that time when New York, when Oswego County fought for the Confederacy, but anyway, but you know, I mean, you have a lot of areas. I mean, it's crazy. One of the things, I think, one of the stories that you know, a lot of mainstream publications tried to cover and then, in my opinion, failed, is the kind of the extreme in quote unquote middle America, where you have these blue states, but then you go to, I mean, you leave San Francisco and you're very quickly in red state country in some directions. And I don't think that people really understand that. You know, they talk about New York, and that's like a story that I'd really, really like to kind of develop more this year. Maybe even just focusing on the idea of going to blue states that, you know, and hitting the red country there, but not doing it in kind of the sociological way that, you know, say the New York Times does. As we might have like a slight opinion on that, but
you thought about just finding like a white supremacist and showing like his normal daily life? I feel like that would be a project that
no one's done
really
that
be
before.
into.
Yeah, they're just like us. They're just regular people.
Just like us, you know. He listens to NPR and, you know, and shops at the local corner store. And then when he goes home, he you know, professes that there's a white genocide going on and that black people are sub-level humans. You know, that's all.
Yeah.
I love that story, by the way. Zach and I have
yeah, that's the whole. We should do like a side thing. There's a New York Times story that they went after. They did an interview, as I called a puff piece, interview with a white supremacist, in which I don't think they even ever called him a true white supremacist. They're like, but in Ohio, and it caused quite a bit of controversy. It was a couple weeks ago. Yeah.
Now, Zach.
Yeah.
You can call it a puff piece. And you get Puff Daddy to interview David Duke.
Hey, be careful, I live really close to David Duke.
Maybe he's watching. All right, well, let's move on to our next topic. I got a whole rapid fire list of topics here because, you know, again, I didn't know what we could talk about tonight, but I want to talk about contests. You know, of course, with the year being over, you know, we've all been busy this past 2017. So maybe as we're culling through our archives, we see a shot that is perhaps contest worthy. And I want to know from you all, like, what do you think of your work and contests in general? Do you plan to enter your work in any contests in the coming year? And just so you know, I found a list of photo contests on this website called photocontestguru.com. It seems to be a pretty comprehensive list of contests, and it talks about some that are coming up here and closing in a few days that people might want to get involved in. And they've also got a list of free contests. So, you know, if you're a little unable to afford the entry fees for some of these contests, you could try entering at least in the free contests. So let me throw it to you all. You know, let's start with you, Craig. I mean, you know, even though you're not in the journalism business, there are wedding photography contests. I know there are. What are there any interest? Do you enter contests, or do you plan to enter any contests?
I have done in the past, and I got on a website probably about a year and a half ago called Guru Shots, of all things, and they'll come up with challenges and competitions, and there'll be a certain theme. And I've been pushing myself to come up with good entries for that when there's something suitable I've got in my library. Yeah, I quite like it. I'm looking at the list now, and there's a couple there that I'll probably have a go at. We've got one of the magazines here in Australia called Capture, and recently, 2 years now, I've done it where it's for emerging artists. So they'll come up with, architectural photography or landscapes or travel photography, and you can enter a certain amount of images. Obviously, you pay for it, and more so for myself, just to sort of track myself compared to other people here in the country. So I don't expect that I'm going to be an emerging artist anytime soon, but it challenged me to actually push myself rather than just keeping everything on just on Instagram or Facebook,
right,
but actually get it out there a little bit further. So that's been my goal for the last couple of years, and I'll probably do something with some of these links.
Cool.
Yeah.
I thought about doing like not necessarily a contest, but like a daily assignment thing. So again, doing the whole photo a day challenge that, like I try and do, where I would, like make the around the lens photo challenge, and, design an assignment for every day of the year, and, give photographers or videographers or whatever the motivation to like, oh, what do I shoot today? Oh, okay, I can shoot this thing. But never got around to building it.
No, I with the a small group that I co-manage here with a friend of mine in the suburb where I live. It's mainly to do with amateur photographers and, giving them a bit of guidance and things like that. We come up with a weekly challenge, and either myself or Colin will bounce an idea for the group. And the recent one, or the one that we sort of gave people a bit of warning about, was a yearly top 10. And so I managed to collate all of my photos from the year to the ones I liked, and picked 10 images that, for whatever reason, I particularly liked of my work, and then shared that with the group, and then actually just uploaded them to the link to Martin Bailey's podcast that he does a yearly top 10 as well. So again, just probably trying to share more of my good work, and always happy for a critique, good or bad, as a way of learning, as a way of improving.
Okay, great. Julie, Noah, any contest advice, tips, tricks, anything you're planning to involve yourself in next year or this year?
Julie?
I actually kind of forgot about it this year. Sometimes I send a couple of things off. Last year, the Weather Channel's been sending stuff off for me, which is kind of cool. And I know DSmog's sending some stuff off. So, I guess I'm getting spoiled with that. I'm like, let other people send it off. And
yeah. I'm kind of the same as Julie. I think this year, I usually do try for Pulitzer and World Press, which would be really cool to win a Pulitzer. It's kind of the only contest I want to win. This year I worked on the Napa wildfires with the Chronicle, and the whole team did a really good job. So I think
they'll take care of it for you.
What's that?
They'll take care of it for you. Yeah, they'll send it in.
They'll put it in there, and I think the whole team did a really good job. And, you don't want to say like it has a good chance, but, the whole staff did really strong work. So
you've got it put in for World Press Photo this year, though. I just looked it up. It's climate. I didn't know.
But yeah, usually those are the only two. Sometimes NPPA, but I just kind of aim for. I would really like to win a Pulitzer one of these days and follow in Scott's footsteps from last week. So maybe it's a weekly delay on your Pulitzer guests, and that'll work out sometime.
This could be your year. You'll come back on and talk about your experience. Not a contest, but I know Zach had one of his images chosen as top 100 photos of the year by what, Time?
Yeah, Time magazine. Yeah, and then got in People magazine, which is the weirdest thing I ever thought.
People Man of the Year.
2017 year in photo thing, which is like the weirdest thing ever. Actually printed in the magazine, which is perplexing to no end.
Probably the first time you've ever bought a People magazine.
I actually did, and I actually, even more uncomfortably, I bought the wrong issue. So I literally was scrolling through afterwards. I'm like, crap! I bought the.
It was the issue with Kylo Ren's abs, right? Kylo Ren naked on the cover. I'm sure.
Actually, it was the wrong. It was the wrong issue with the woman who's marrying one of the royals. This is how connected I am.
Oh,
There's literally two issues with two issues with this like almost the same photo on the cover from People magazine, because I guess it's that important. But what do I know?
That's a story Noah should be able to talk about. The California princess, right?
She's not California.
Isn't she from California? I thought she was Californian.
I don't think so. I'm not positive, but I think she's East Coast. Is she California?
I thought
so. Anyways, I don't know.
Okay. It's just out of reach. I'd grab the magazine, but
yeah, there you go.
Sounds like
we'll
a
put it in
Disney movie.
We'll put it in the show notes. I know it's really important. Everybody wants to know, but
that was going to be the winning topic for tonight. But Zach, are you planning to enter any contests? From any of your stuff from Charlottesville or anything?
For once, I actually feel like I have a chance at least getting something. And I don't even mention that word because it's so cheap. Although I did have one of the photographers I respect most in the world scream at me that I need to submit that photo, this photo from Charlottesville of DeAndre Harris for the Pulitzer, which at least now I actually have, like some imagination that it might, do something more than just be ignored like previous ones. But this is all right. So, yeah,
Zach, can I interrupt?
Yeah.
If you were to, I would obviously encourage you to submit that photo. If you did win a Pulitzer, how does that change or affect your career? I mean,
what's a good question.
Dramatic effect?
I hope it would.
You would go from not making enough money to not making enough money and having a Pulitzer.
Exactly.
Right.
I mean, that's one of the funny things is that we've talked about with previous. Oh God, what was his name? He did Tank Man.
Right. Mm-hmm. He didn't win a Pulitzer though.
Oh, he didn't win I thought he won the Pulitzer.
He was like second place or something.
But I mean, but it is interesting that you look at a lot of Pulitzer Prize photographers and then they just go back to their daily job of doing whatever work, and so God only knows what it would actually do. It would allow me to say when people are doubting whether I'm a professional photographer, an activist photographer, whatever, I'd go, well, I have the Pulitzer. That would at least.
I don't know. I'd still call you on being an activist. I don't think that.
You'd have to wear it in every single episode of the show.
You don't think that like if I won any, I literally have won the first time I ever won an award in photography since high school. Was the DC photo thing, and so that was the first time I ever won anything ever. Well, I mean, since high school, I literally won a community award or something like that. So that would be nice. I'm going to submit for pretty much everything I possibly can for my Charlottesville work. And I'm hoping I'm hoping that the fact that I did the work. One thing I'm worried about, which is something I have to look into, is that how much the publication matters. And because one of the problems is I work for progressive, like lefty websites, and like the fact that I'm submitting under that or whatever. But it'll be interesting. Picture of the year, I'm certainly doing, and the World Press. Hopefully I can get a nomination or something.
It's hard going up. I mean, honestly, I think the winner for the year is the car shop from Charlottesville.
Yeah,
that's anything from anywhere going up against that. Not because of the publication, it's just an amazing news shot.
No, I mean, it's literally.
Think last year was wrong.
I would be hard pressed to choose any of my work over that photo. I mean, that would be because and the problem is it's from the same event, and so. And the fact that it'll be interesting to see how all that plays out, because there's a couple other photographers that did damn amazing work from Charlottesville. I mean, I think that between the wildfires and Charlottesville, I think that those basically people that work those two things are probably going to sweep most, at least, of the breaking news stuff. And hopefully I'll get swept up in that somehow. But yeah, I mean, like everybody, basically I haven't seen any bad work from the wildfires, and some of it has been like, it's hard to, I think it's hard to get a really crap. I mean, this would be speaking, I've never covered a wildfire. It's so amazing that it's hard to say that it's not something you'd get a bad photo of. Like, I feel like the cell phone photos you see from the wildfires.
No, it is a lot.
But this is what I'm saying. No, but I mean, like your shot.
I just disagree so much. It's the same with floods. I mean, it's so easy to take boring flood shots.
Oh,
I can just imagine it's easy to take boring fire shots.
Yeah.
It's actually really hard to put yourself against to get in the spot where you're getting that 40. I'm not bagging on you, but it is
no. What I'm saying, I mean,
just getting there is hard.
The vastness of it. I mean, like, well, the photos that we see. I mean, like some of the just the fact, the vastness of the story, like from far away, have created some amazing shots. Like your shot, was it your shot like of the water bursting through? It was you, right? Because who had the water bursting through the door, and you got it's when you got your camera destroyed, right? No.
Oh yeah, but no, yeah.
That's not a good shot. Okay, see,
no, that shot was.
That's the thing. I thought that shot was amazing. So, yeah. So I guess
but it's actually the fires are a lot harder than you think. It's hard to get to the right spot, not to shoot it once you're there, but to get to the right spot.
No. That's not that. Yeah, it's not how I meant it. But yeah, no, I can't imagine. I mean, just even the shooting through the gear and everything like that. Actually getting anything in focus, in anywhere near focus. I've done just a very tiny amount of work shooting with a gas mask in a tear gas situation, and I think I have one image that's anywhere near sharp. So yeah, no.
Yeah, it's a real spray and pray situation when you're shooting with a gas mask.
Yeah.
Let me tell you. Sure. All right. Well, yeah, I say check out this contest page, the photocontestguru.com. I don't think I've shot anything contest worthy this past year, but if with these free competitions, I might give them a shot because, hey, why not? Maybe there's something worthwhile in all of my last year's shots, but I wasn't really aiming for anything crazy this year. So, but then maybe that'll be one of my projects to shoot a Pulitzer winner. I mean, I'll find something here locally I can shoot and submit to Pulitzers. Who knows? Maybe I'll get lucky. Anyways, also they have good a link to some photography grant website. I don't know, grant.photography.com, but the A is a V. So there you go. If you're looking to sign up for trying grants, go for that. Let's close out with some predictions this year. I know that Noah and Julie have tons of predictions to give to us about where they see the world of photojournalism, visual journalism going this year. I'll go first. I'll throw my hat in the ring. I think we're going to see some really some new advancements, or at least some attempts at trying to differentiate cameras in phones this year. We saw 2 cameras in phones last year. I think we're going to see 3 or more as manufacturers try to out-camera each other, the amount of cameras, or do something different with their cameras. I think the big sort of, and it was a sort of mentioned on one of the websites I linked to, is sort of the need to have, the ability to focus after the fact will go from being something that is sort of, niche to something that is more seen as a standard within, sort of phones at least. Because again, you're looking at 2 cameras in a phone. We'll get to 3 cameras, maybe 4 cameras. And then if you can align all those to shoot at different focal lengths at the same time, you have an image that you can choose focus afterwards. I tell you, that would be a neat feature even in the professional sector to have that capability where you're just shooting. And then if you mess up, if your subject is a little bit soft, be able to fix that just like you would fix exposure or color correction. I think that would be the next big thing, to see in sort of, imagery with regard to the future. But will that come in 2018? Probably not in the professional side, but I could definitely see something like that coming to the prosumer, phone-sumer side.
Think about it. Let's say that was adopted, though. I mean, you know how long it would take news ethics to catch up with that? I mean, where you could pick your photo. That would be like 10 years from now, like NBPA would decide on, when it was appropriate to pick your photo. Seriously, I mean.
Let's talk about that. I don't see an ethical argument or at least an ethical issue with that, because it's not unethical if you capture every single focal length, right? If the camera is able to capture every single focal length, why is there an ethical issue there? You're just choosing from the different shot, essentially, or different focus of your shot. It's not creating an image. I mean, it's no more different than choosing how you frame a photograph inside the viewfinder, I would think.
I think it's pretty different. I think the analogy would be like, what about just selecting the parts that you were going to blur? Which is basically what, if you're choosing to highlight one part, you're in effect choosing to blur another part.
But you're doing that in the camera, in the lens when you shoot the picture, right?
It's true, for sure, for sure.
So what's the difference between doing it? You would have both options to you. You would just choose it after the fact. Like, let's say you focused on the foreground subject, but realized that the picture is stronger by focusing on the background subject. But you could change that in post. I mean, is that unethical to choose that after the fact?
I don't think news agencies would get on board with that for years and years. I really don't. I wouldn't see that happening. I mean, you can't selectively sharp. I do on some of my stuff, but some agencies you work for, you aren't even allowed to, selectively sharpen a face and leave the rest how it is. So I don't see picking a focal plane happening. I'm not saying that it shouldn't happen. I just don't see that being acceptable for news.
I see that. I see it basically as a technological skip, basically, from taking 30 images of the same scene and then basically combining them. Which, if you did that in real life, that would be unethical. Like, if you were able to take 30 photos and go brrr, and kind of like focus and no one was moving, and then afterwards I would go in, whether it be in Photoshop or some magic in camera, combine those things, that would be unethical. It's unethical to combine different images together. I've got 12 images of that photo from Charlottesville. And there's because I just went click, 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 burst as the scene played out in front of me. I really wish that I could pull things in from each scene and kind of combine it in to make it really kind of from more emblematic of the moment, I guess. But that's unethical. I would never do that. And so the fact that there's a technological glitch, obviously it's all deciding where you are. Like the fact that, 30 years ago, the idea that I could have taken even that photo in the garage without, shooting at, 1600, whatever ISO that I would ever shoot at, and doing now, I guess that we can have that conversation that as technology advances, then we've changed kind of what is allowed due to the fact that technology has allowed that to happen.
I don't see
a difference. I see a difference between like that the Lytro camera, using it for photojournalism, maybe editorial. There's within the world of things that could be published, I could see it, but I would at least at minimum want some asterisk next to that. To me, this is like Bonds or whoever, or Mark McGuire having the home run records. You'd have to have an asterisk next to every photo that was taken with a Lytro. Especially if we're talking about right after we're talking about awards, then most certainly we'd have to be in there, because then there's at least part of the talent of being a photographer is choosing the focal length in the moment.
Go back to what Dave said, which is a really interesting point about the camera limitation, that the ethics are based on the camera limitation. It's true, and that's a lot of our ethics are based on camera limitations from 30 years ago, and that's become, and for better or worse, I'm not defending it.
Yeah.
But
darkroom techniques,
even that's not acceptable anymore. The hand of God. There are a lot of darkroom techniques that aren't. But
So all I'm saying is, like, for instance, I can take my camera, the Panasonic GH5, plug, and I have a setting that allows me to do a post focus thing. So I'm not going to ever use it in a run and gun or non-mounted situation, but if I can mount the camera on a tripod, it basically the camera will run through a series of exposures that focus each focal length as it goes through all its focal lengths, and then after the fact, I can choose the photo I want. Right. That's all I'm talking about. I'm just talking about a more advanced degree of that, to where essentially you can do it on the run and gun because it's so fast that captures it in that 1,000th of a second that you would take your photo. And then all you're doing is you're editing your editing software and you're looking at it in your Lightroom or your Adobe Bridge RAW, and you just have a little slider, or you just touch the point on the screen where you want to be in focus. And it's doing is it's not compositing imagery, it's not creating a shot. What's doing is it's taking that stack of imagery, that 30 shots or all of the different focal lengths, and you're just choosing the one in that I'd say that degree, that shot list, and that's that's going to be your select. That's all it is, in my opinion. I don't see an ethical argument that that's like saying, oh well, you shouldn't shoot 50,000 frames per second, because that's you're capturing moments between moments. There's I don't know, if your camera can shoot 60 frames per second, is there a ethical violation there? Because you're capturing things that the normal human eye wouldn't see.
Are you allowed to pull out frames from video for editorial work?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
That's fine. Think about HDR. Like, HDR is actually.
But HDR is composite. HDR is composite.
HDR is more honest than a regular exposure, though. I mean, your eye doesn't see a white outside of window, and HDR shows you details. So HDR is more honest, but it's not acceptable.
But that's unethical. HDR is totally unethical because you're talking about compositing imagery.
If you take a step back, though, but if you take a step back, HDR is actually more true to what we see, and it should be more ethical. Our eye sees more like an HDR image than like an out-of-camera Nikon or Canon image, but yet it's not acceptable. You know what I'm saying? I'm kind of defending HDR there. Not that I want to see it everywhere, but it is more of the truth.
You and Trey Ratcliffe.
This is the poll quote from the episode. Noah Berger defends HDR. I'm just going to put that.
It's a more honest capture of a scene. It is. It's hard to argue that that's not a more honest capture if you are looking at something that has a hot window.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, I would say though, whatever you want to say about the ethics, is that this movement is a lot like the fact that digital cameras are getting easier and cheaper and anything. Like, I don't see this as ending well for us.
Oh no, we don't need a photographer.
The fact that like part of us having jobs is the fact that we are able to, especially photojournalists, able to in a snap moment choose the right settings and know our cameras. If literally I can take this little thing that I have on me at all times and go boom, and then choose the focus setting to make it look like a real camera set, something out of a DSLR or whatever, well, we're screwed.
And that's what's happened. Yeah,
and so whether or not it's ethical or not, for me, I just go into the world of, I don't like it.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, it's going to be one of those things that'll find its way onto your camera, and it's just a matter of you not using it, using that function, essentially.
No, what were you going to say, though? I want to hear.
The bigger picture, and this is really frustrating to me, but you look at all this amateur content created with Snapseed and Instagram, and it looks fucking awesome. And you can't bag on it. You can't bag on it because the person isn't a pro photographer. Right. And I go out there, and sometimes I don't come back with the results with my $6,000 camera that somebody does with Hipstamatic, and it really makes you question where the art is. And I'm not going to put down the technology because it's easy, and great image is a great image, and it's made our lives harder. I'm like, how can I just pick up my phone and take a great image? And I've struggled for 300 fucking shots to get it with with my real equipment. So it's
but it's well, the thing though is there's still certain things like going into a fire or covering a protest where you can get the lucky shot, but if you know what you're doing, you're always going to give your client something, and that's why you keep getting work. No, I mean, you go into cover a flood and you don't know what you're doing, you're going to swamp your car. So there's still some
sure.
level to it. So I'm not all that worried about people being able to change the focus that we're going to be out of work. I just, I thought when you talked about predictions, I just even understood the question wrong. I'm not worried about the new gear. I was going to give an optimistic prediction, which is that if you're shooting good, strong, solid work, there's more of a demand for that because people are getting really bored of the garbage. And that if your work really stands out, these places, they're getting clicks, but they're realizing like, oh, well, maybe if we feed people some better content, that's actually going to be something. And that's kind of coming back into vogue. That's my prediction. The good images. So, I think there's some.
Or maybe the phone cameras will get so good that they raise the bar for everybody, because now you'll have a phone that can, with computational stuff. And I will say a technology that is completely unethical is the whole faux bokeh effect.
Yeah.
Any image you see with that is completely unethical, and that's just an example of layering and stacking. And
I guess I'm still saying, like, even no matter how good your phone is, you hand your phone to someone to take your picture when you're standing in front of something, and they like shoot half your body.
My mom has an iPhone 10. She still can't take a good photo.
So it's not about the equipment. Yeah. I'm not worried about the equipment, but I see where you're going with that for sure.
But I think it's
a person. So. But I just don't see it as a concern quite yet.
I mean, the gap between amateur and pro has gone to this. I mean, if you look at 20 years ago, the gap was massive.
Yeah.
The technology is just almost, not exactly equalized, like you said, but it's brought it so close that it's kind of mind-blowing.
And that's where I think that, at least with photojournalists, not just professional photographers, I think as photojournalists is that we need to start. Not start because we all do. I think everybody at least here does. But is that we need to be really, really obsessive on the journalistic side of the photojournalist title, and that's what really can differentiate us from the cell phone pick, or the video or the video clip or whatever. And like at least that's what I hope that like whether we get scenes. Like that's why, to me, we should get hired, and we have to continually figure out how to continually make that argument with editors. That's why you need to hire us. Is that we can promise you, based on however long we've worked in this industry, that we're not lying with that image. Because I mean, you can go to a fire scene, you can go to any scene and take a great photo, but if it doesn't tell the full story, if you're shooting it from a certain angle to make the fire look bigger, or make the white supremacist look worse, or whiter, or whatever, whatever. Like I stand by my story on my telling of what happened in that parking garage. I stand by it, and I don't care how many people come at me on Twitter and tell me, oh well, DeAndre Harris was doing something beforehand. The fact that I have 15 years of ethical journalism behind me, breaking some huge stories, and I've gone through fact checks from hell with BBC, with The Guardian, or whatever. To me, that speaks. That's why hopefully someone out there hires me, as opposed to just goes, oh, we'll just use that image we found on Facebook or on Twitter. So hopefully.
All right. Well, I think that's going to be the show. I was going to talk about the Batterygate issue on Apple, but I don't think there's really much to talk about there. It's like, don't use Apple phones. Am I right? Come on. Easy solution there. But anyways, Noah, why don't you go and tell us where people can find out more about you and see more of your work?
My website is noahbergerphoto.com, Berger, not like the food. And that's it. I have a lot of flaming and violent pictures you can look at.
Noah, are there any like local burger joints around you that have named like a burger after you because you like are so well known and frequent there, the Noah Burger?
There is not, but there's a guy who shares the name here who bowls at 300, whose name is up on the bowling alley wall, who I would like to take some qualities from.
Nice. All right, Julie, where can people get to learn more about you?
My name .com, JulieDermansky.com, or shorter JSDART.com. There's lots of my work up there.
Nice. All right, great. Craig?
For me, it's Stampfli.photography, so I'm sure you'll throw that in the show notes. Or at Instagram, it's Craig.Stampfli. That's where I normally tend to throw up some work.
All right. Don't throw up too much. It's not good for your health. You can find me and Zach at AroundTheLens.com. Zach, is there anything anybody needs to know about what you're doing before we sign off?
Nope. I'm going to be throwing up a year in photos. Yes. Throwing up my photos, vomiting my work from the last year, hopefully either tonight or tomorrow,
awesome.
Both on visu.news and over at Around the Lens.
Awesome, man. Great.
Very cool.
All right. Well, this has been episode 105 of Around the Lens. I hope you all had a wonderful 2017 and are looking forward to a wonderful 2018, because I am. Again, I've been your host, David J. Murphy, and we are out.